I've started putting this thing here together. So I'm using a piece of Xterra board. This saw, it's a 3-phase Delta unisaw, and there's some things left attached to it, these brackets, and another one will go here. So I'm going to put this on top of those brackets, and I'll have to notch out a little bit for those bolts. I needed to come out far enough so that when this will be upside down, right? So you'll press this in and then lock it. So this gets pressed in, that gets locked, and so now it's on. I'm working on doing is just make this flush. So all I have to do is put this up there, slip some rods in it, and I'm good to go. That's what I'm working on. Here's the location where the router is going to be. I held it up against there and marked it. It's in the center this way, and I just held it, made a mark here, then traced it. Oh, about the rods and where those are going to get placed. Router base here, and when you put these in, they turn out to be exactly 4 inches apart, center to center. In order for this to be flush with the top of this, right, it's going to be down here like that. And so this will give us an idea how far these rods need to be located. But if I route this out at the lower bottom, then at the lower, press down as far as I can. And then what I'm going to do is wrap this in tape and set it in a bed, Bondo. And then when it hardens or it gets semi-hard, I'll pull the rod back out, and then I'll show you what I'll do with the top. But what we're going to try to do is locate this base when it's down to the bottom, and that represents down to the bottom, or up to the top when this is flipped around. Then we are going to want to be able to thread this thing in and connect the router to the base. All right, so to locate this place where we want to route out, this center line that's formed by those 2 screw holes in there is, as you would expect, 2 inches from the center of that to the center of this. So if I can mark this center line, then measure over 2 inches, that's the center line right there. So what we should do is have the same measurement from here to there, and from here, from there to there on the inside. Wow, looks like it should be exactly 3 inches. If I set this thing to 3 inches from there to there and from there to there, yes, that works. From the right side of that line to the beginning of that line is the same as the distance from the left side of that line to that line. So this is the center line. Now just come 2 inches over, and we can do this to the thousandths of an inch. 2 inches over, and mark that. Now, something besides a pen for this kind of precision, although I'm going to be using a bigger slot, and since the way I'm going to be using Bondo, it's not going to matter. So let's extend this line here all the way to the edge as a cross reference, and then move over 2 inches. Right, and that's 4 because it starts at 2. So here's this spot, and that checks. So this will be the center line of the router where we're going to route, and I'm going to use a 1/2 inch bit, so it'll be a 1/16 larger on either side. But I'll show you how I'm going to manage the registration using skills from aircraft building. So now route these out. I don't know what I'm doing, but I pulled on that and then the thing springs up. So what I did was move this here and pulled on this lever until it goes, I don't want to, there, until it hits that thing. Then I move this little plastic thing and set it to 0. And now, right, so I don't have it locked in, but this is keeping it from move. So now I need to move this out of the way and move it down the required amount by the measure. So I'm pushing this down as far as I can, and I'm going to route deeper, but set the final height using this Bondo. So there's the bottom of that. I just happen to have a block of wood in the trash that's that height, so I can, that would set that depth. That is the distance right there, plus a little bit more. From the center of this bit to the edge of the plate is 3.5 inches. So I marked a line 3.5 inches from the center to the edge. Now I could use this edge, but then I realized if I turned it a little bit and it starts riding on one of these corners, it's gonna pull away. All right, well, I was going to clamp a piece that would fit underneath this, a straight edge, and then follow it. So I would actually be setting myself up with a groove. I couldn't go further this way because of this, and I couldn't go that way because of that. But this is just not critical, and these clamps are in the way of my travel, so I'd have to stop and change them. So I'm just gonna go with this. This is my first time doing this kind of maneuver. I mean, I've used a router before, but not this. And so loud tools scare me, so I'm going to put this on. Not to mention, I lost part of my hearing using a pass load framing nailer. Maybe this won't scare me so bad. All right, well, here's the problem. The middle of that bit is supposed to be 11.5, and it is not. And this is where it was set to cut at. So I'm going to move this to 11.5, and let's see what happens when we put one of these bars in here. Well, see, there's plenty of room in here. So I'm going to cut this one and then put both of them together and see if there's enough room. Now it's cut large on purpose because I'm going to fill in with Bondo. Now it's cut large on purpose because I'm going to fill in with Bondo. All right, this is the way I'm going to do it this time. Measuring from here to this line we want to cut is 15.5 5/8. So if I set this to 15 5/8, that should be good. All right, now to cut out this circle with this Bosch. Did you see that guy? That this arm came out and made a, just cut. I was like, what is that? Do they call that CNC? I put the base in here in this thing real quick so you couldn't see how ugly this hole was. But anyway, it's a proof of concept. I need to go out and buy a drum sander now so I can make this thing look good. What we need to do now is to make sure that this, whatever we use here, the aluminum or wood, slides. I mean, it's at the right height. It's at the right height because it's sitting down and this is sitting down, so everything that way is good. We now need to encase this in a certain way. I cut another piece of this exterior board, and even if I hold it down, I can still move this, even though this is slightly above. Well, maybe it's just an exact dimension that we needed, and this was the magic width that we used to set the depth of the router, which is 0.40 is the distance that I set that plunge router to on a thickness of 0.765. So essentially 3/4 inch. This is a true 3/4 inch. If anything, just a hair bit bigger, like 10 thousandths bigger. So you use 3/4 inch something exactly, and you use this spacer that is 0.40, and you set your plunge router to that depth. I mean, you know, there's lots of ways to skin this cat, but essentially I guess that leaves this with 3/8 or close. It's close enough, it's touching, but it's not yet binding. It doesn't look like. So let's flip this over and clamp those down and flip it over and see what that's like. All right, so I flipped it upside down and set it on these super experienced sawhorses. What happens is, well, these do slide, even though this is pinched. These are clamped, and they slide. So this plunge cut must have been exactly 3/8 or a hair longer, deeper. Now if I put this on top, you can see that even it touches here and here, but there is a gap of about a 1/16, you would, or less, between here. So brings up two things. First, how to get this down, and the other thing is this is bowing up, probably because I took out so much material. But the bowing up can be corrected by some blocking or some ribs underneath, or well, at least on this end you can put an edge band. How to lower the table. Send me a message and I'll give you a link to how to get these super experienced sawhorses. Everybody on YouTube can be envious. That distance is what needs to be removed. Well, nothing needs to be removed but the distance. Something needs to be added in this case. This is 0.11. Back again to this side. This is 0.1 inch. So I need to come down 0.1 inch. If I route out a little more, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do to make it perfect. Okay. I made some more grooves in the top part here. And I'm putting this Scotch clear tape. Now, I've used duct tape before for similar kinds of mold making things, and this serves as a release. So we're going to make a form and then open it back up, and this tape will be the back of it will be the release agent. Yeah, the release. And I'm going to come out here with a little more. Oh, probably don't need this in case the Bondo gets carried away. And what is going to happen, at least the plan is, that we're going to make a mold of the part that we want the height for. So in other words, let me get these. This I moved this to the table saw because I needed a precise flat surface. I think I was having an uphill battle using that surface. I think it was too squishy, and this surface is going to be the one I'm looking for. So this is now flush, right, with the top of this, and we want to lock that position in place. So we're going to put some Bondo in these grooves and smash it down, and then when it dries we'll peel it up, and this will be the proper location on against this, because it was pushing up before, which meant this was off one side a 1/10 of an inch and another side 0.08 inch. So this way we're going to have a precise height. That's the plan anyway. When we do airplane building stuff, we use epoxy and mix it with what they call flocks, cotton flocks. It's cotton fibers, or micro bubbles or micro balloons, or chopped fine fiberglass. And it depends on how resilient you want the filler to be. If it's structural, you use microglass. Micro bubbles are just for cosmetic, and cotton flocks was for what was used before the other two. They used that for everything. So it's a general purpose sort of thing. And it takes 4 hours. Using this, we have only about 15 minutes to deal with this, so it's a good thing I made the Alright, now maybe we have enough to do this side before it starts drying. Let's move it out to the edge. This rod that goes through the router base in the right position. I can now see why you wouldn't want to use more than 3/4 of an inch here. You have hardly any room. Stuff has taken its, goes through a phase where it's like soap, and you can carve it. So let's take this off. See, this will go through a phase where you can't, see I'm cutting it, where you won't be able to cut it. So this soapy phase is nice if you want to carve something or remove a lot of material using a Surform. I'm sure some of you guys know a lot more about this than I do. Okay, so it doesn't matter that it's not everywhere. This is going to get glued to here, and this will also help hold where I routed this out. 1, 2, 3. That one has, I need to remark this. I'll just mark it with 1. Alright. Now, what we should be able to do is clamp it, turn it over. This thing, these should be free to move now because they're not attached to the. This is warm, so this is still setting up. You can feel the heat in it. Let's see about getting this piece off. Almost to the point where you can't do that anymore. You didn't make full contact there. This is still hot. I think it's solid enough though. So let's put it back to the registration marks. The aluminum might cool it off. And let's clamp it together. Okay, we have the Bondo on that little cover piece, and it's still, well, I shouldn't say still. We corrected that it was too high to now being a little too low. So I think another coat of Bondo, maybe we should let it firm up a little bit, because when it lays down on the piece of wood with the Bondo on it, it's down too low. So we need more Bondo there. I mean, it should register perfectly, but I don't know what's going on, so we'll do it again. Okay, this time I have the release tape down. I don't suppose that could be holding it up, right? And put a little, I used a Sureform plane to scrape any excess that came beyond the edges out onto the exterior board. So the theory here is I used a little more catalyst in this batch, so it looks more darker pink, more red. All right, so get the registration marks. Right there. And the weight. This is pretty heavy. Bucket of silica sand. Okay, what I'm noticing is that the reason I'm thinking that I'm having so much trouble with getting this to register so that the base of this is perfectly flat is that these rods, look at how loose they are. So every time I do some kind of trying to set this, is I'm dealing with this being loose. Now I had this thought to use these little, there's a way to screw this in that sets, but I didn't want to, because I thought that they would interfere with this and I couldn't use them. And then I realized, well, I don't have to use, I can buy the same kind of screw and just screw it in. So I tightened it down so that these now are fixed. And what happens is it drives these down and these are riding up. So I'm not going to give up, although I want to. I'm going to make this, I need to make this wider so that when I put the epoxy in here, it has some way to move around. And I also want to make this wider. I might even use a 3/4 inch bit, and I want to make this wider. So the challenge is going to be to avoid the Bondo from coming up around. It needs to just form a base. If it comes up around, then I won't be able to pull this out. And I'm going to, I could route these out with a Bondo that when they would be perfectly fine, but I'm going to use new pieces here that I just cut and cut wider grooves in them. And also what this is going to allow me to do is glue out here and out here, and maybe one little strip here. I don't want the glue, when I glue this down, to go into the metal rods, since it will glue them into that position. And the whole idea is I want these to come in and out. Okay, so I'm going to set about to, you've seen the router work with these, and make sure that these are centered, and I have registration marks on these, so I'm putting the piece back where it goes. And so I'm now going to router this. See how close this is here? There's not enough room for the Bondo to get in there and do its registration thing. All right, so I enlarged the grooves where these rods sit, and I can see that it's not dragging on the bottom of either of these, so it's suspended over the top. And now I will cut the router spot grooves, clearance places in these hold down places. Then the idea is to wrap this in a release agent. I'm going to use duct tape this time and smash it all together, and we should have this registration perfect with the top of this. Now there's ways that this could be done with set screws and moving this up and down in these channels, 1/4 of an inch. I don't need very much out of here. This side runs against that, and then it cuts. So all right, I now have blank space, grooves routed above and below the rods on both sides, and the rods are stable, and I can move this back and forth, and it doesn't drag against any of this Xterra board. And now I'm going to put a release surface on it so I can put the Bondo in and then get it back apart. All right, this is how I'm doing it. This I've done already, and what I want to make sure that happens is the place that's exposed to the Bondo is the top and bottom surface. I don't particularly want it to be up around the sides, because that'll make it difficult to remove. So I'm putting this duct tape in the middle here onto the side part way. Contact, hopefully first, with the aluminum rod, and smash it down on top of that. It's not binding, so that's what I want. In the future, I would use a wide bit, like 3/4, so there's room in here, and I would make it deeper. The first past. I made it just as deep as the rod, but that's, you want some space under there. They look symmetrical. Don't do like I did at first and fold it up. So now make sure there's no debris, because whatever height we place this at, it should be locked in. What I'm going to do, that Bondo released from that clear tape. Okay, now I have this Scotch moving tape. That worked pretty well as a release. I'm not going to put it on the top part, and whatever excess gets on this, it won't matter. So now comes the part where we put the Bondo in, and just as one last trial fit, this will go here. We're done with that, and this will go here. We'll go there. This should be, well, you know, it's pinning part of the, I think it's pretty free, but it's pinning, when I press this down, it pins the duct tape. We're gonna go with this anyway. Let's see what we have here. Let's just flip it over and see if the registration is correct. Oh yeah, the registration is perfect there. Perfect there. So if you have a piece and you're bringing it over, it's not going to get. So that other part came off already. You know, if you subscribe, I can tell you how to make these amazing sawhorses. These two are out. There's that one. And that one. Now see, that's stuck to the base. Okay, continuing to clean up this. See, it is possible to put the cellophane in here and then put more and fill that up, but I don't think that's gonna affect the performance one way or the other. That registers right. And then this goes here. Oops. Goes just like that. They do slide. Well, with one. duct tape. Now, will this move? It will move. So, a couple things to do is we can put spacers, and this is tight. It's a good fit. We can put spacers to make it move more easily. This is a beautiful job that I did. So this needs to be all the way to the front before then we lock these, and it'll become clear why to do that. I need a Allen wrench. I want it all the way to the front edge, because when I turn this down and tighten it, and then I'm gonna have to take this apart again because I need to cut these rods off. And then I put this on here. This now locks the router in place. It gets put in here. If I can find a hole. And thread this in. The way to the end. Thread this in. Pull this all the way to this outboard side. Lock this in. Tighten these. This so that this should not move. Now these clearance holes here, they clear these bolts and put it on these flanges, and these are my temporary feet that I'm putting here. Whoa. This comes open and it lets you pull it up, but it won't come out because there's this safety. So you need to press the safety and it comes up. Now, this is the first time I've attempted to attach it in the base in the router stand. I can see the electrical contacts are there and they're here, so it's going to go up this way, and I can tell it locked in. So there we have it. Now I can use this key as one of the ways to adjust the height. I clipped the router motor in there, and I'm going to adjust it, and I'm noticing that this thing is wobbly, and I look down here and I forgot to click that. Now the wobble goes away. All right, so I needed to lower the bit to clear the fence so I could move the fence back on the other side. and this needs to be unlocked here, and then you press on this and it will come all the way down to that's the safety catch. So there's 3 positions that this will lock into. I used this thing and it's still a little, I want the bit to go into the wood a little more. So undo this, turn this up some more, and lock it back down. Well, with the other plunge router, you can adjust it with the thing locked. This dust collecting system is getting all the fine stuff. The bigger stuff, like the stuff that concerns me that I might breathe, it's getting that. Now I'm going to raising some panels for some cabinets, and I'll take you through what I discover in doing that. It's not like I have this all figured out at all. You can watch me make mistakes and learn probably more from my mistakes than from what I accomplish.